The flickering laboratory light trembled with each gust of wind from outside, making the shadows cast by stacks of books and papers seem to take on a life of their own. She adjusted her glasses for the third time in less than 5 minutes. The weight of exhaustion began to settle as she analyzed the incomplete code on the screen. The document was old, handwritten in a notebook whose yellowed pages were almost falling apart beneath her fingers, but something about it wouldn't leave her mind, a numerical sequence that followed no known logic, as if it were a message from another place or time. She couldn't say when she'd started dreaming about it. Perhaps it was after the night she found the notebook in an abandoned second-hand shop on the outskirts of the city. The owner, a thin man with deep-set eyes named Eric, had only said that it had belonged to someone who was no longer among the living. She'd laughed at the time, thinking it was just an attempt to inflate the object's value, but now, weeks later, she wondered if he truly knew more than he'd let on. The numbers on the screen flickered as if they were alive. For a moment, she had the feeling they were watching her back. In the silence of the laboratory, the only sounds were the constant hum of the computer and the distant ticking of the clock on the wall. She looked at the clock and realized it was already past 2 in the morning. Still, something inside her prevented her from stopping. That code seemed to be more than just a mathematical sequence. It seemed to breathe, to pulse, as if it were alive. And then it happened. The computer screen went dark for a brief moment before returning to normal, but now there was something different about the code. A new number had appeared at the end of the sequence, as if it had been inserted by an invisible force. A shiver ran down her spine, but she didn't look away. The phone beside her desk vibrated, startling her. It was a message from her colleague Mantor, sent hastily to investigate rumors about a group of scientists who claimed to be working on something similar. She hesitated before opening it, fearing what she might find. The words were simple and direct: "Stop messing with it." She frowned, confused. There was no way Mantor could know what she was doing, unless someone was watching. Her heart quickened, but she tried to remain calm. Returning her attention to the code, she noticed that the numbers formed patterns reminiscent of something she had seen before. During her undergraduate studies, she had studied ancient languages and cryptography. That sequence brought back memories of Norse runes, symbols used both for protection and invocation. However, this didn't make sense. How could something so ancient be connected to a modern code? She typed the numbers into an online translator, hoping to find some hidden message, but the result was even stranger: geographical coordinates pointing to a remote location in the mountains. A tightening in her chest as she wrote the coordinates on a piece of paper. Something was wrong there, something inexplicable. The laboratory windows seemed darker now, as if the world outside had vanished. She looked at the notebook again and noticed, for the first time, small marks on the edges of the pages, human fingerprints in black ink. Whoever wrote this wasn't alone. Then she heard it, the sound of footsteps coming from the hallway. They were slow and deliberate, echoing through the empty laboratory. She held her breath, trying to identify where they were coming from, but the sound seemed to be inside her head. She slowly got up, grabbed the notebook, and put it in her bag. Before she could decide on her next move, the door creaked open, revealing only darkness. No one entered, but the air grew heavier, as if something invisible was approaching. She didn't wait any longer. An irrational impulse took over her, and she ran down the hallway, ignoring her tired legs. The elevator was broken, so she descended the emergency stairs, leaping the last few steps to the ground floor. The street was deserted, illuminated by intermittently flickering streetlights. She looked back, half expecting to see someone or something chasing her, but there was nothing. For a moment, she thought she'd imagined it all. Until she saw her reflection in the window of a closed shop. Her image, but with something wrong behind it. A vague figure, like a shadow that shouldn't exist. She ran home, locking the door as soon as she entered. She threw her bag on the table and tried to calm down, but thoughts swirled in a whirlwind of questions and fears. What was that code? Where had it come from? And what did that shadow mean? She opened the notebook, examining the pages carefully. This time, she noticed something she had overlooked before: notes in the margins, written in hurried, illegible handwriting. Words like transcendence, sacrifice, and rebirth jumped out at her, sending a shiver down her spine. The next morning, she decided to seek help. She contacted Mantor, explaining what had happened, but omitting crucial details. He seemed concerned, yet curious, and promised to meet her later. In the meantime, she researched the geographical coordinates. Typing them into an online map, she discovered they pointed to an abandoned mine in the mountains, a place linked to stories of mysterious disappearances and secret rituals. She knew she should leave it all behind, but something pulled her forward. That night, Manter arrived with a laptop and a serious expression. He showed a video recorded by urban explorers who had visited the mine years ago. Although of poor quality, it showed inscriptions identical to those in the notebook on the walls. The group was never seen again after posting the video. He suggested they go there, but hesitated. Crossing that line could be irreversible. While they were discussing, her phone rang again. It was an unknown number and contained only one sentence: "Come before it's too late." She looked at Manter, who seemed as confused as she was. However, something in the message made her feel it wasn't a choice. She had to go, discover what was happening, understand the code, and perhaps change the world. They arrived at the mine at dusk. The sky was painted with orange hues that flowed over the mountains. The air there was colder, heavy with oppressive silence. They took flashlights, ropes, and basic equipment, but nothing seemed sufficient to face what awaited them. The mine entrance was dark and irregular, like an open wound in the mountainside, exuding a damp, metallic smell reminiscent of rust and something indefinable. She hesitated before taking the first step. Darkness swallowed them as soon as they crossed the entrance. It was as if the outside world had ceased to exist, replaced by a space where only the sounds of breaths and footsteps filled the void. The walls had deep marks and symbols identical to those in the notebook, which seemed to change as the light fell upon them. Manter muttered something about fractal symmetry and impossible geometry, but his voice trembled. They continued, guided by the coordinates and the unsettling feeling that they were being watched. The tunnel branched out infinitely, as if the mine itself was trying to confuse them. At a certain point, she had the feeling they had been there before. The same symbols, the same incline of the ground. She didn't know how much time had passed. Time seemed distorted, as if the clock had stopped. They found the chamber, a vast hall carved into the rock, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into the shadows. In the center, a black metal structure reflected the light of the flashlights like liquid. On it, engraved in perfect lines, was the complete code, the sequence she had seen in the notebook, now connected to unknown symbols. It was like an interface that didn't belong to the physical world. She felt her fingers itching to touch it, but something held her back. She approached cautiously, her eyes fixed on the structure that seemed to pulse. Each number and symbol vibrated in the air, as if waiting for her. An invisible force pulled her, a call she couldn't ignore. Manter, beside her, seemed torn between fascination and fear, but didn't stop her. They knew they had reached a point of no return. With a hesitant movement, she extended her hand and touched the cold surface. The instant her fingers met the metal, an electric current surged through her body. A brilliant light emanated from the structure, enveloping them in a silvery aura with voices whispering in ancient tongues. She heard words she didn't understand, but which carried profound meaning, something beyond time and space. When the light dissipated, they were alone in the chamber. The structure was still there, but more alive, more conscious. She knew she had opened a door that couldn't be closed. The code, the notebook, the coordinates, everything was part of something larger, something she now shared with Manter. Fear remained, but so did a certainty. She was on the right path, and there was no turning back.